Buried beneath the sands of time, ancient Egypt left behind towering pyramids, golden tombs, and something far more intimate, an erotic papyrus so explicit, it vanished from public view for centuries. Dated around 1150 BCE, the Turin Erotic Papyrus reveals a side of Egyptian life rarely spoken of, 12 vivid scenes of sexuality, humor, and ritual, drawn not in secrecy, but with artistic pride. Tonight, we'll unravel what might be the world's oldest sex manual, explore how the Egyptians viewed pleasure, and why they believed desire continued even after death. Settle in as we quietly uncover the sacred and sensual secrets of the Nile. On Bore Me to Sleep. Part 1. The Whisper in the Archives. Thebes, 1150 BCE. The Nile's breath was thick with the scent of lotus blossoms and baked earth as Nebaman, a young scribe of the temple of Ammonius, dipped his reed pen into a pot of ink. His fingers ached from hours of copying hymns to the gods, precise, sacred lines that left no room for error. Around him, the temple archives hummed with the quiet rustle of papyrus and the low murmurs of priests. Sunlight slanted through high windows, illuminating dust motes dancing like restless spirits. Nebaman sighed. Day after day, he transcribed the same rigid prayers, the same tales of Osiris and Isis, while his mind wandered to the world outside, the laughter in the markets, the vibrant festivals of Hathor. The stories whispered in taverns of pleasures the temple forbade him to know. At 20, he felt like a bird in a gilded cage, his wings clipped by tradition. Focus, Nebaman, snapped Tahotep, the chief archivist, his voice like stone grating on stone. That hymn to Ammonius Ra must be flawless for the Pharaoh's blessing. Dreams can wait for the afterlife. Nebaman bowed his head, hiding a flicker of rebellion. Flawless. The word haunted him. Perfection was a prison. He longed for something real, something that pulsed with life, not death. As Tahotep shuffled away, Nebaman's gaze drifted to a shadowed corner of the archives, where crumbling scrolls lay forgotten under a veil of cobwebs. No one ever went there. It was the realm of rats and decay. But today, a sliver of sunlight caught the edge of a loose brick in the wall. Heart pounding, Nebaman waited until the archivist's footsteps faded. Then, like a thief in his own sanctuary, he crept toward the darkness. The brick shifted easily, revealing a shallow alcove. Inside, wrapped in linen as fine as a queen's shroud, lay a single papyrus. He unrolled it slowly, breath-catching. This was no hymn. Before him unfolded 12 vivid scenes, painted in ochre, carmine, and gold. Men and women entwined in impossible positions, bodies arching, limbs coiled like vines, faces alight with ecstasy. One woman balanced effortlessly on her hands while her partner knelt before her. Another pair laughed as they tumbled in a playful embrace. The artistry was breathtaking, alive with movement and joy. Nebaman's face flushed. He had heard tavern tales of such things, but never seen them. This was desire made tangible, a secret dance of flesh and spirit. A sudden noise, a sandal scraping stone, made him freeze. He rolled the papyrus tight, shoved it beneath his tunic, and replaced the brick just as Tahotep reappeared. Daydreaming again. Boy, the archivist grumbled. The Pharaoh's ceremony is tomorrow. Work. Nebaman nodded, his heart hammering against the stolen treasure. That night, in his tiny chamber near the temple, he unrolled the papyrus by lamplight. The figures seemed to breathe in the flickering glow. Who had created this? Why hide it? His eyes lingered on a scene where a woman offered a lotus to her lover. It felt sacred, not sinful. Then, at the edge of the scroll, he spotted hieroglyphs, a title, the Book of the Secret Joys. And below it, a chilling warning, for the eyes of the initiated only. To reveal is to invite the wrath of the silent ones. Sleep eluded him. Visions of the dancers haunted his dreams, their laughter, their freedom. At dawn, he made a decision. He needed answers, and only one person in Thebes might understand. Merit, a priestess of Hathor. She was whispered about in the markets, a healer who knew the old ways. The songs of the body and soul. Some called her a witch, others a saint. The temple of Hathor stood bathed in morning light, its pillars carved with cow-headed goddesses and sistrums. Unlike Ammonius' austere domain, here music drifted on the air, drums, flutes, the clink of dancers' bracelets. Nebamin found Merit in the inner courtyard, leading a ritual. She was younger than he'd imagined, perhaps 30, with eyes like dark honey and a cascade of braids adorned with turquoise. Her voice, soft yet commanding, wove through the drumbeats. Hathor, Lady of Pleasure, fill our veins with your wine, our hearts with your fire. Women swayed around her, barefoot and bare-breasted, their movements fluid, celebratory. Nebamin stood transfixed, the hidden papyrus burning against his skin. When the ritual ended, Merit approached him, a knowing smile on her lips. You carry a storm in your eyes, scribe of Ammonius. Hathor's garden rarely sees your kind. He stammered, suddenly aware of his own rigidity. I found something. In the archives. She led him to a private alcove hung with scarlet curtains. As Nebamin unrolled the papyrus, Merit's expression shifted from curiosity to reverence. Her fingers traced a scene where a woman crowned her lover with flowers. So it still exists, she murmured. The Tchebu Nefer, the beautiful instruction. You know it. All priestesses of Hathor do. This is no tavern manual, Nebamin. It is a sacred text, older than the pyramids. A guide to the union of body and Ka, the soul. She pointed to the hieroglyphs. See here? These positions are rituals. To heal, to conceive, to honor the gods. Her voice dropped. And to prepare for the afterlife. Nebamin frowned. Afterlife? But the Book of the Dead speaks of judgment, of hearts weighed against feathers. And what is the heart but the seat of desire? Merit's eyes gleamed. The ancients knew. In death, as in life, joy is divine. A soul unfulfilled in passion is a soul adrift in Duat, the underworld. That is why pharaohs were buried with concubine statues, why commoners painted lovers on tomb walls. This papyrus teaches that ecstasy is a prayer. Nebamin stared at the images anew. The laughing couple, the offering of lotuses, it was worship. Then why hide it? Merit's smile faded. Because fear is a weapon, scribe. The high priest of Ammonius and his kind preach control. They say desire is chaos, a threat to Ma'at, order. But Hathor teaches that true order flows from balance. Repress the body, and you starve the soul. She re-rolled the papyrus gently. This was created in a time when temples celebrated the flesh. Now it is heresy. As she spoke, footsteps echoed outside the alcove. Merit tensed. You were followed. Before Nebamin could react, the curtains tore aside. 2 temple guards of Ammonius stood there, spears glinting. Behind them loomed the high priest, Menkaw, his face a mask of icy rage. Nebamin had seen him only from afar during ceremonies, a tall, gaunt man whose eyes held no mercy. So, Menkaw hissed, the rumors are true. A scribe defiled the sacred archives with this. He snatched the papyrus from Merit's hands. And a priestess of harlots aids him. Merit stepped forward, unflinching. This is Hathor's wisdom, Menkaw, not defilement. Wisdom. Menkaw spat the word. It is corruption, a poison that weakens the spirit. He glared at Nebamin. You will burn for this, boy. And you, priestess, will face the goddess's judgment. As the guard seized Nebamin, Merit caught his eye. Her voice was a whisper only he could hear. The House of the Red Sands. At moonrise, Menkaw waved the papyrus like a trophy. Destroy this filth, and seal the archives. No one enters without my permission. Nebamin was dragged away, the high priest's laughter echoing in his ears. Outside, the streets of Thebes bustled with life. Merchant carts, children's games, lovers stealing kisses in alleys. The guards shoved him toward the temple of Ammonius, but Nebamin's mind raced. The House of the Red Sands, a place of rumor where outcasts gathered, and Merritt's warning at moonrise. As they crossed the market square, Nebamin made his choice. With a sudden twist, he broke free. Diving into the crowd, shouts erupted. He ran, ducking behind pottery stalls, leaping over baskets, his scribe's robe tangling around his legs. Glancing back, he saw them, not just guards, but a hooded figure slipping through the throng, silent as a shadow. Following me. Part 2. Whispers in the Sanctuary and Shadows in the Archives. The air within the House of the Red Sands was thick with the scent of myrrh, dried lotus blossoms, and dust motes dancing in the slanted shafts of late afternoon sun filtering through high, narrow windows. Nebamin sat on a simple reed mat, the rough texture grounding him after the frantic flight through Thebes' labyrinthine alleys. Before him, Merit moved with the serene grace of her calling, pouring cool water from an earthenware jug into a simple cup. Her eyes, however, held a sharp intensity that belied her calm exterior. "Drink, Nebamin," she said, her voice low but resonant in the quiet room. "The house offers sanctuary, but Menkau's reach is long. His fear makes him dangerous." Nebamin accepted the cup, his hands trembling slightly. "Fear? Fear of what?" "It's just drawings. Explicit, yes, but—" He trailed off, recalling the vivid, almost playful scenes on the papyrus, the acrobatic couplings, the frank depictions of pleasure. Merit settled opposite him, folding her linen robes neatly. "Just drawings?" "No," young scribe. "To Menkau, and those like him who seek to control the divine river of life, it is a weapon, a reminder of powers they cannot command." She leaned forward, her gaze piercing. The Papyrus of Turin is not merely a manual of the bedchamber. It is a hetep, an offering, a guide to the sacred union that mirrors the gods themselves. It teaches that the fire ignited between two bodies is the same fire that Ra harnesses to cross the sky, the same force that Geb and Nut used to create the world anew each dawn. It is life force made visible, a celebration of Ankh, Jed, and was, life, stability, and power. Nebamin felt a flush creep up his neck, not of embarrassment now, but of dawning comprehension mixed with awe. The priest at the archives, he said it was for the afterlife? That the dead needed to know. That. Merit nodded gravely. Indeed, the journey through Duat is perilous. The body may perish, but the Ka, the vital spark, endures. The papyrus serves as a reminder to the Ka of the potent life force it once embodied, a force that can repel the demons of the dark waters and strengthen the spirit for its trials. It affirms that the joy of creation is not severed by death but transformed. To deny this, her voice hardened, to call it obscene, as Menkau does, is to deny a fundamental truth of Ma'at, the cosmic order. It is to sever the living from the source of their own vitality and the dead from a tool of their resurrection. A shiver ran down Nebamin's spine. The papyrus suddenly felt immeasurably heavier, charged with a significance far beyond the titillating curiosity that had first drawn him. Menkau wants it destroyed. He sent guards. He fears its power, Merit confirmed. He fears the old ways, the deep magic that flows through the earth and the body, not just the rituals confined within temple walls. He fears a return to a time when the priestesses of Hathor held greater sway, when the ecstatic dance and the sacred embrace were pathways to the divine as valid as his own chants and sacrifices. A flicker of ancient pride shone in her eyes. He fears women who understand their own power. "So, what do we do?" Nebamin asked, the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He had stumbled upon this secret. Now he felt compelled to protect it. "We retrieve it," Merit stated simply, "before Menkau burns it, or locks it away in a darkness so deep even the gods might forget it." "Retrieve it? From the temple of Ammonius? Under Menkau's nose?" Nebamin's voice rose slightly in disbelief. The archives are guarded day and night, and after today, they'll be watching for me." Merritt allowed a small, enigmatic smile. "The House of Life holds many secrets, Nebaman, but the temples? They are built upon layer of older secrets. And the priestesses of Hathor," she paused, her smile widening just a fraction, "know many of them. Menkaw commands the guards, but he does not command the shadows, nor the hearts of all who serve within those walls." She rose and moved to a wooden chest inlaid with faded turquoise. Opening it, she drew out two items, a small, unassuming clay lamp, its surface plain, and a rolled piece of much newer, coarser papyrus. Unrolling it, Nebaman saw it was a remarkably detailed schematic of the Temple of Ammonius complex, far more intricate than any official map he'd seen as a scribe. It showed not just chambers and halls, but ventilation shafts, disused storage rooms, and, most intriguingly, thin lines indicating passages hidden behind walls or beneath floors. These, Merritt tapped the map, are the veins of the old temple before the great pylons were raised, forgotten by most, but not by Hathor. Her priests and priestesses once moved freely throughout, tending the inner fires. Her finger traced a line that snaked from the outer administrative quarters, bypassing the main archive chamber and ending in a small, unmarked room adjacent to it. This is where the oldest, most sensitive documents were sometimes kept, a holding place before they were cataloged or, in Menkaw's case, condemned. "I believe this is where the Turin Papyrus was taken after you fled." Nebaman studied the map, his scribe's mind quickly memorizing the route. "How do we access it?" "The main way is through the archive itself, heavily guarded," Merritt said. "But there is another." Her finger moved to a symbol near the outer wall, a stylized depiction of water. "A conduit. An old storm drain, long dry, that runs beneath the temple precinct. It emerges near the riverbank, disguised by reeds. It connects," her finger traced a narrow path upwards, "to a shaft that opens into that very room. It's narrow, treacherous, and known only to a few." "And the lamp?" Nebaman asked, picking up the simple vessel. "Not for light alone," Merritt replied. She took it from him, uncorked a small alabaster vial, and poured a thick, dark oil into it. "This is oil of the blue lotus, mixed with resins. Its smoke is heavy, sweet, and induces a deep, calm sleep in those who breathe it. A gift of Hathor, used sparingly and only for great need. One breath will render a guard insensible for hours, with no memory upon waking. You must light it only when absolutely necessary and shield your own face." The plan was audacious, terrifying. Nebaman's heart hammered against his ribs. "When?" "Tonight," Merritt said, her voice firm. "Menkaw will expect caution, perhaps a delay. He will bolster the main entrances. The drain will be less watched, if at all. The moon is new. Darkness will be our ally." She placed a hand on his shoulder. "Hathor guides the bold, Nebaman, and Isis protects those who seek to preserve truth. Are you ready to walk in the shadows for the light?" Nebaman looked from the map to the lamp, then into Merritt's unwavering eyes. The fear was still there, cold and sharp, but beneath it surged a newfound resolve. This was no longer about forbidden images. It was about a truth Menkaw sought to erase, a piece of his people's soul. He nodded, the movement stiff but decisive. "I am ready." The journey to the riverbank was a tense ballet of shadows. Merritt moved like a wraith, guiding Nebaman through deserted back streets and along the reeking margins of canals, avoiding the torches of the occasional night watch. The air hung hot and still, the only sounds the distant bark of a dog and the relentless chorus of frogs from the Nile marshes. They found the drain entrance exactly where the map indicated, half collapsed and choked with reeds near the water's edge. The smell of damp earth and decay wafted out. Merritt pulled aside the thick vegetation, revealing a dark, gaping maw just large enough for a person to crawl through on their belly. "Keep the map and lamp close," she whispered, handing him a small bundle containing the items. "Move slowly. Feel your way." The shaft upwards will be marked by carvings of lotus buds. Feel for them in the dark. It will open into a niche behind a loose stone in the room. Wait, listen, then act swiftly. I will wait here. If the sun rises and you have not returned. Her voice tightened. May Anubis guide you kindly. Nebaman swallowed hard, nodded, and dropped to his knees. The darkness within the drain was absolute, thick and suffocating. The rough stone scraped his tunic as he inched forward, the bundle clutched to his chest. The air grew cooler, damper, smelling of ancient silt and stone. He moved by touch alone, his fingers tracing the slimy walls, his breath loud in the confined space. Panic threatened to claw its way up his throat. He focused on Merritt's words. Lotus buds. Feel for the lotus buds. Time lost meaning in the pitch black. He crawled for what felt like hours, his muscles screaming. Then his probing fingers felt it, a smooth, deliberate indentation in the stone wall, the unmistakable curve of a carved lotus petal. Relief, sharp and sweet, flooded him. He traced upwards, finding more carvings, a vertical line of them, a ladder in the dark. The shaft. It was even tighter than the drain. He had to contort his body, bracing his back against one side and his feet against the other, inching upwards like a spider. Sweat stung his eyes, mingling with the grime. He focused on each small movement, each grip of his sandals on the stone. Higher and higher, guided only by the carvings beneath his fingertips. Finally, his head brushed against stone. He felt upwards, finding a ledge. Pushing gently, he felt a slab shift slightly. The loose stone. He listened. Silence, thick and heavy, pressed down from above. Gathering his strength, he pushed the stone slab sideways. It scraped softly, a sound that echoed like thunder in his ears. He froze, heart pounding, straining to hear any reaction. Nothing. He widened the gap just enough to squeeze through, emerging into a cramped, dusty niche barely large enough to crouch in. A heavy woven tapestry hung before him, muffling the world beyond. Cautiously, he parted the fibers a fraction. He was in a small, windowless storeroom adjacent to the main archives. Shelves lined the walls, stacked haphazardly with scroll cases, wooden boxes, and loose bundles of papyrus. A single oil lamp flickered on a low table, casting long, dancing shadows. And there, lying carelessly atop a pile of other discarded scrolls near the table, was the distinctive, slightly yellowed papyrus with its frayed edges, the Turin Erotic Papyrus. Relief washed over him, so potent it made him dizzy. His gaze swept the room. One guard sat slumped on a stool near the only door, his chin resting on his chest, breathing heavily. Asleep. Nebaman's hand tightened on the clay lamp. Only if necessary. The direct route was clear. He could be in and out in moments. He slid silently from the niche, the tapestry falling back into place behind him. He moved like smoke, keeping to the deeper shadows near the shelves, his eyes fixed on the papyrus. 5 steps. 4. 3. His fingers brushed the precious scroll. A floor tile shifted under his sandal with a faint click. The guard's head snapped up, eyes bleary but instantly alert. Who's there? He grunted, fumbling for the spear leaning against the wall. Nebaman acted purely on instinct. He spun, snatched up the clay lamp from his bundle, and struck the flint Merritt had provided. The wick caught, flaring to life. He thrust the lamp towards the guard, not for light, but aiming the spout from which the thick, sweet smoke began to coil. While the guard started, inhaling instinctively as he lurched forward. His eyes widened, then instantly glazed over. The spear clattered from his grasp as his knees buckled. He slumped to the floor, unconscious before he hit the stones, a soft sigh escaping his lips. Nebaman stood frozen for a second, the lamp trembling in his hand, the heavy scent of lotus and resin filling the small room. He quickly extinguished the flame, plunging the room back into near darkness save for the single oil lamp. The silence was profound, broken only by the guard's deep, rhythmic breathing. He didn't hesitate further. He grabbed the Turin papyrus, its familiar texture a comfort against his palm. He rolled it tightly and secured it inside his tunic, against his skin. Turning, he darted back towards the tapestry-covered niche. Just as he reached it, the main door to the storeroom creaked open. Nebaman froze, plastering himself against the wall behind the tapestry, peering through the narrow gap. Not a guard. The figure who entered was tall, gaunt, draped in the leopard skin mantle of the high priest. Menka. The high priest's sharp eyes scanned the room, immediately noting the unconscious guard. A flicker of irritation crossed his face, swiftly replaced by cold fury as his gaze fell upon the pile of scrolls where the Turin Papyrus had lain. He strode forward, kicking aside the other documents. Gone. The word was a venomous hiss. He spun around, his eyes raking the shadows. Who dares? He nudged the unconscious guard with his sandal, contempt twisting his features. Fool. Drugged by the whore's tricks. He knelt, examining the guard's face, then sniffed the air. Lotus. Hather's poison. His gaze swept the room again, lingering for a terrifying moment on the tapestry concealing the niche. Nebaman held his breath, every muscle taut. Menka straightened, his voice dropping to a chilling murmur meant only for himself, or perhaps the gods he served. The impurity must be cleansed. Fire is too kind. The Nile's depths will swallow its filth, and the thief. He turned abruptly and strode out, calling sharply for more guards. Search the archives. Every corner. Find the intruder. Nebaman didn't wait. The moment the door slammed shut, he wrenched the tapestry aside and scrambled back into the narrow shaft, pushing the stone slab closed behind him with frantic strength. He half fell, half slid down the shaft, ignoring the scrapes and bruises, the precious papyrus a burning brand against his chest. Menka knew it was gone. Menka knew someone had used Hather's arts. The hunt was on, and the high priest would unleash the full might of the Temple of Ammonius to find him and destroy the ancient truth he carried. The shadows of the drain swallowed him as he crawled desperately towards the riverbank, towards merit, and towards a far more dangerous future than he had ever imagined. The sanctuary of the House of the Red Sands might not be sanctuary for long. He vanished into a labyrinth of narrow alleys, heart pounding like a war drum. The papyrus was gone, but Merit's words burned brighter. Ecstasy is a prayer. Now, he had to pray he'd reach the Red Sands alive. Part 3. The Weight of the Scrolls. The reed boat cut silently through the Nile's inky waters, Nebaman's breath still ragged from his escape. He clutched the papyrus, wrapped in oiled linen, against his chest, its edges digging into his skin like an accusation. Thief, the high priest Menka had called him. But as the temple's torchlight faded behind him, Nebaman whispered back, Preserver. He found Merit waiting at the moonlit dock of the House of the Red Sands, her priestess robes replaced by a simple linen shift. Her eyes widened at the blood streaking his forearm. A guard's dagger had grazed him during the chase. Without a word, she pressed a poultice of honey and murdered the wound. The sting grounded him. Menka knows, Nebaman rasped. He called it blasphemy. Merit's fingers stilled. Then we have less time than I feared. Inside the sanctuary's hidden cellar, lit by a single alabaster lamp, Nebaman unrolled the papyrus. The vibrant illustrations seemed to pulse in the dimness. Couples intertwined in impossible geometries, their limbs fluid as hieroglyphs given life. Nebaman traced a scene where a woman arched like a bow, her partner kneeling in worship. These aren't just positions, are they? No, Merit's voice was soft, reverent. She retrieved a fragment of another scroll from a cedar box, a corner depicting hands clasped over a lotus blossom. This is from the second scroll of breath. The one you hold is the fourth scroll of earth. Nebaman stared. There are more. 12, Merit said. One for each hour of the night journey through Duat. She explained how each scroll mapped not only pleasure, but a path to Ak, the glorified state of the soul after death. The priests teach that the dead need spells to navigate darkness. But these, she touched the papyrus, teach that sacred union is the spell. The body remembers joy, even in the tomb. A cold realization settled over Nebaman. Menka isn't just suppressing indecency. He's guarding the priesthood's power. If souls could find transcendence through earthly love, what need for costly funerary rites or priestly intercessions? The temple's gold, its influence, all built on controlling the door to the afterlife. 3 nights later, the city simmered under a punitive dawn. Medjay guards patrolled every alley, their spears glinting. Nebaman, disguised as a potter's apprentice, watched from a rooftop as a vendor was beaten for harboring obscene materials, a crudely carved fertility amulet. Menka's purge had begun. Merritt appeared beside him, hooded. "The third scroll of water is in Saqqara," she murmured, "buried in the tomb of a dancer priestess. Her source, an old transcribed in the margin of her fragment, hinting at a song buried where the river starves. Saqqara's necropolis, where desert sands drank the Nile's overflow." "And Menka?" Nebaman asked. "He seeks them too. A scribe loyal to our cause saw temple scouts near the step pyramid yesterday. They left at dusk. The desert swallowed sound, the only rhythm their sandaled feet crunching through cooling sand. Nebaman carried a digging stick, Merritt a lamp, and a vial of snake antivenom for scorpions, not spies," she'd said grimly. The dancer priestess's tomb was unmarked, known only by Merritt's fragment. "Seek the eye of Hathor where the falcon dives." They found it carved faintly above a sealed shaft, a cow-eared goddess gazing west, where a cliff shadow mimicked a stooping bird. As Nebaman pried open the stone slab, a voice sliced the silence. "Drop the tools." 3 temple guards emerged from behind a mastaba, swords drawn. Behind them stood Menka, his crook-hand flail staff gleaming. "You mistake chaos for revelation, Nebaman," he said, stepping forward. "These texts are not wisdom. They are a sickness from a time when Ma'at was unbalanced." Merritt moved first. Her hand flew to her throat, scattering powdered acacia bark, a blinding irritant, into the guards' faces. As they staggered, coughing, she shoved Nebaman toward the tomb shaft. "Go." He slid into darkness, the papyrus's rustle loud as thunder in his ears. Above, steel clashed. A guard's choked cry. Then Merritt's voice, tight with pain. "Run, scribe. Remember that a thud cut her off." Nebaman stumbled through the tomb's antechamber, his lamp guttering. In the burial chamber, he found the dancer priestess's sarcophagus pried open, jewels scattered. Despair clawed at him until he noticed the false back of her gilded shrine. Behind it lay a cylindrical case, ebony, capped with silver. The third scroll. As he seized it, a shadow filled the doorway. Menka, his cheek bleeding from Merritt's nails. "You cannot outrun Ma'at, boy," he hissed. "The scrolls will burn, and you with them." Nebaman did the unexpected. He raised the alabaster lamp and hurled it at the tomb's painted ceiling. Fire licked across millennia-old resin varnish, erupting into a curtain of flame. Menka recoiled. In the chaos, Nebaman fled through a crack in the rear wall, the 2 scrolls burning against his ribs like live coals. Above ground, the night was empty. No Merritt, only hoof prints churning the sand toward Memphis. He whispered her unfinished warning into the wind. "Remember that." The desert didn't answer. Part 4. The Valley of Shadows. The reeds of the sacred lake sliced at Nebaman's face like knives as he plunged deeper into the murk. Torchlight seared the darkness behind him, and the shouts of Medjay guards echoed off Karnak's colossal walls. Spread out. He can't have gone far. Mud sucked at his legs, thick as burial resin, but he drove himself forward, Merritt's linen scrap clenched in his fist. Life. Stability. Eternity. The symbols pulsed in his mind like a drumbeat. Weighs it. The Valley of the Kings. He waded through chest-deep water until the reeds thinned, then hauled himself onto a deserted embankment near the Temple of Ma'at. The satchel holding the first and third scrolls, still dry, thank Thoth, thumped against his ribs. He crouched in the shadows, lungs burning. The guards' torches now fanned westward, toward the city gates. Fools. Menka would expect him to flee toward Memphis or the desert, not toward the dead. The valley. a place of eternal silence where pharaohs slept in stone bellies beneath the earth. Why would Menkaw take Merit there? To bury her alive? To desecrate her as a warning? Nebamin's hand shook, not from fear, but from a cold, clarifying rage. He tore a strip from his cloak, bandaging a gash on his arm from the shrine's window bars. Think. Move. Dawn stained the Theban hills blood red as Nebamin slipped through the workers' village of Deir el Medina. Here, the tomb cutters and artisans lived in mud brick homes, their walls painted with prayers to Ta and Merit Seeger. He kept his hood low, blending with laborers heading to the valley. Their chatter was grim. Guards doubled at every tomb, muttered a man carrying chisels. "The high priest's gone mad," replied another, "searching for some stolen relic. Even halted old Nakt's burial yesterday." Nebamin froze. Nakt, the scribe who'd mentored him as a boy in Memphis, a gentle scholar who despised Menkaw's politics. Dead? Grief struck like a hammer. Nakt had known secrets about the priesthood's corruption. Had he been silenced? A hand gripped Nebamin's shoulder. He spun, dagger half-drawn, but relaxed. It was Cassa, a wiry tomb painter whose daughter Merit had healed a fever years ago. Cassa's eyes darted left and right before he pulled Nebamin into a cramped alley. "By the gods, Nebamin, they're hunting you like a hyena," he hissed. "Medjay showed your likeness at dawn. Merit, gone to the valley. Menkaw took her before first light, but not to the royal tombs." Cassa leaned closer, voice dropping. "To the broken place. The tomb of the forgotten queen." Nebamin's blood chilled. The forgotten queen, Neferneferuadin, the heretic pharaoh's discarded sister. Her tomb had been sealed and cursed centuries ago after she defied the priest of Ammonius. Rumors claimed it was a nexus of Heka, forbidden magic. Why there? Cassa pressed a water skin and a pouch of dates into Nebamin's hands. "Menkaw's men are everywhere, but I know a path." He sketched a map in the dirt, a fissure in the cliff face behind Queen Nefertari's tomb, hidden by scree. "It leads down to the old queen's chambers. Dangerous. Flooded in parts. Why risk this?" Nebamin asked. Cassa's smile was thin. "Merit saved my child, and Menkaw stars our village while his temple feasts. Now go, and may best guard your steps." The valley blazed under the midday sun, a furnace of limestone and dust. Nebamin scrambled up the path Cassa had described, the cliff face scorching under his palms. Below, Medjay patrols stalked the main wadi, their spears glinting. He found the fissure, a jagged crack veiled by a landslide of boulders. Inside, the air turned dank, smelling of bat guano and wet stone. Darkness swallowed him. He felt his way forward, fingers brushing crude carvings, a snake eating its tail, a star within a star, pre-dynastic symbols, older than the scrolls. The tunnel narrowed, forcing him to crawl. Water seeped through his clothes, icy as the Nun, the primordial ocean. His mind raced. Why would the fourth scroll be here? The Turin Papyrus, first scroll, depicted sacred union. The third, found in Saqqara, described breath and movement as keys to the afterlife. What power lay in the fourth? A sound echoed ahead, a low, rhythmic chanting. Nebamin stilled. The tunnel opened into a cavern where torchlight flickered. He peered around a stalactite. Below, in a chamber carved with eroded goddesses, stood Menkaw. He wore the leopard skin of a high priest, a khopesh sword at his hip. Before him, bound to a limestone pillar, was Merit. Her priestess robes were torn, her cheek bruised, but her eyes blazed with defiance. Around them, 6 Medjay guarded a stone sarcophagus, its lid pried open. "Foolish to think your red sands could defy the will of Ammonius," Menkaw sneered. "This ends now. Where is Nebamin?" Merit spat at his feet. "Digging your grave, butcher." Menkaw backhanded her. The crack echoed. Nebamin's dagger trembled in his grip. "Wait. Watch." Menkaw turned to the sarcophagus. "The fourth scroll is mine. When I burn it with the others, the old ways die forever." He drew a scroll from his belt, not papyrus, but gold-beaten foil. Nebumen's breath caught. The fourth scroll. Menka held it aloft. Neferneferuddin hit it well. But she forgot. Priests know how the dead whisper. He began reading aloud. The words slithered through the chamber, ancient and guttural. Not hieroglyphs, but older. Hurrian? Nebumen realized. The language of Mitanni, Egypt's northern enemies. The air thickened. Torch flames shrank to emerald sparks. Shadows pooled like oil at Menka's feet, rising into shapes, jackal-headed, scorpion-tailed. Kybid. Shadow souls. Merit strained against her bonds. Stop. You invoke what you can't control. Menka ignored her, chanting faster. The shadow creatures swirled toward Merit, hissing. Nebumen acted. He hurled his dagger. Not at Menka, at the bronze brazier beside him. It toppled, scattering coals across the scroll in Menka's hand. The gold foil blackened, curling. Menka screamed, batting at flames. The chanting broke. Chaos erupted. Nebumen leapt down, landing atop a Medjay. He seized the man's spear, driving it into another guard's thigh. Shadows lashed like whips, disoriented. Merit shouted, "The pillar! Push it!" Nebumen understood. He rammed his shoulder into Merit's limestone pillar. It rocked, then toppled, crushing a Medjay. Merit rolled free, snatching a fallen dagger. Together they fought back to back. Nebumen parried a Kopesh strike. Merit slit a guard's throat. The shadows recoiled, wailing. Menka extinguished the burning scroll, but its edges were ash. No, he held. Fury contorted his face. You ruin everything. He lunged, not at them, but at the sarcophagus. With a grunt, he wrenched a funerary statue from its niche, a lapis lazuli figure of Bes, the dwarf god of pleasure. Merit gasped. The vessel. Don't let him out. Too late. Menka smashed the statue against the wall. Inside, nestled in linen, lay another scroll, thin, brittle papyrus painted with vivid lovers entwined in a garden. The true fourth scroll. Menka snatched it. Farewell, heretics, he spat. He fled through a side tunnel as the ceiling groaned. Dust rained down. The shadow creatures surged forward, no longer controlled. Run. Merit dragged Nebumen toward the fissure. Behind them, stone crashed, sealing the chamber. They stumbled into sunlight, coughing. The valley sprawled below, oblivious. Merit sagged against him. He has the fourth scroll, but not its secret, Nebumen said fiercely. He showed her the charred gold foil he'd snatched from the coals, a decoy, but etched with clues. Menko read the outer spell, but the core power remains hidden. And I know where. He pointed to the foil's edge. A tiny cartouche glimmered. Nebma Adare. The throne name of Amenhotep III. The Pharaoh's pleasure garden in Malkata. Merit breathed. Where the scroll was made. Nebumen nodded. The source. That's where Menka will go to unlock its full power. Merit touched his wounded arm. Then we beat him there. But first. She nodded westward. Beyond the valley, the Nile shimmered. On its far bank, the palace complex of Malkata glowed like a mirage abandoned for decades, a ghost of golden age excess. Somewhere in its overgrown gardens, the fifth scroll waited. And Menka, wounded but fueled by fanaticism, would be racing toward it. As they scrambled down the cliff, Nebumen felt the weight of the first and third scrolls in his satchel. They hummed against his skin, alive with the wisdom of bodies and breath. The fourth scroll was a key to something greater, a truth that could shatter Menka's world. But beneath his resolve, doubt whispered. What if the scroll's power demands a price? Merit's hand found his, steady as stone. Trust the old ways, Nebumen, she said, as if reading his thoughts. They survived priests and pharaohs for millennia. They'll survive Menka. The sun beat down. Somewhere, a desert fox wailed like a lost soul. Nebumen gripped her hand tighter. The game had shifted. Now, they hunted the hunter. Nebumen and Merit crossed the Nile to Malkata, where moonlit gardens hide both the fifth scroll and Menka's ambush. They'll confront the ghost of a pharaoh's decadence, and the dark cost of the scroll's magic. Part 5. Whispers in the Moon Chamber. The Nile's fading light painted the western desert in hues of amber and rust as Nebamin and Merit trudged toward Melkata. Dust clung to their robes, and the grit of their narrow escape from the Valley of the Kings still coated their throats. Nebamin carried the third scroll and the recovered Turin Papyrus in a leather satchel slung across his chest, a weight heavier than stone. Menkau's possession of the fourth scroll felt like a blade poised at Egypt's heart. Merit walked silently beside him, her priestess composure frayed by exhaustion. Blood stained her sleeve from a graze sustained during the skirmish, a stark reminder of Menkau's ruthlessness. "It's not just about the afterlife anymore, Neb," she said abruptly, her voice raspy. Moonlight caught the gold in her eyes. The fifth scroll, it's said to bind the living world to the cosmic dance. Menkau doesn't want to suppress it. He wants to twist it. To make Pharaoh a puppet. She paused, staring at the distant glow of palace torches. "My mother taught me fragments of these rites before the priesthood silenced her. They called her a heretic. She died in a house of rest, but I know it was poison." Her hand brushed Nebamin's, a fleeting warmth. "That's why I fight. Not for dusty scrolls, but for the truth that breathes." Nebamin's chest tightened. He'd been a lowly scribe, content with copying grain tallies, until the Turin Papyrus upended his world. Now, Merit's vulnerability cracked his awe of her. "I fight because I saw the joy in those illustrations," he admitted. "Not just bodies, but union, balance. In the archives, everything was rules and fear. This." He tapped the satchel. "This felt like life." By dawn, they reached Malkata's outer walls. The palace complex sprawled like a sleeping beast, gardens heavy with lotus blossoms, courtyards echoing with the clatter of potters and weavers preparing for the day. Pharaoh Amenhotep III's opulence screamed from every painted column, lapis lazuli inlays, gold-leafed statues of Sekhmet, the air thick with incense and ambition. They shed their travel-stained robes, stealing linen kilts and wigs from a laundress's cart. Nebamin smeared soot on his arms to mimic a laborer. Merit bound her hair tight, becoming a handmaiden with downcast eyes. "The Chamber of the Moon," Merit whispered as they slipped through a servant's gate. "It's hidden behind the Hall of Receptions. Look for the false star map." Hather's eye opens the way. They moved through corridors alive with chatter. Nobles swept past in pleated linen, oblivious to the two shadows hugging the walls. Nebamin's scribe instincts flared as he deciphered hieroglyphs on a fresco. "The sky's milk flows where lovers' limbs entwine under Soptet's gaze." A clue. Soptet Sirius, the star that heralded the Nile's flood. Life and renewal. Deeper into the palace, the air grew cooler, quieter. They found the Hall of Receptions, a vast space dominated by a throne dais. On the western wall, a mosaic depicted the night sky, golden stars on indigo stone. Nebamin traced the constellation of Meskhetiu, the bull's thigh, and pressed the brightest star. A click echoed. A section of wall slid aside, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. The scent of myrrh and damp earth rose to meet them. Menkau's spies could be anywhere, Merit warned, igniting a reed torch. The flame cast writhing shadows on the steps. Below lay the Chamber of the Moon, a domed room no larger than a burial niche. Celestial maps covered every surface, silver constellations shimmering in the torchlight. At its center stood a pedestal carved from obsidian, shaped like a crescent moon. And there, resting in its curve, lay the fifth scroll. Nebamin unrolled it with reverent hands. The illustrations were unlike the others, not just couples, but bodies arched like bows, limbs mirroring the curves of the Milky Way. Hieratic script spiraled around them. As Hathor joins with the sky, so flesh becomes vessel for the stars. The climax, a sacred alignment, opens the gate to Sekhem. Sekhem, life force, the pulse of creation. Nebamin's breath caught. It's not about death or pleasure alone. It's about becoming divine now. Merit touched a depiction of a woman crowned with cow horns, Hathor's avatar. The priesthood chains divinity to Pharaoh alone. This scroll says every farmer, every potter, can touch the eternal through love. That's why Menkaw fears it. She began to copy key passages onto a scrap of linen, her hand steady. We need to. Stone grated above them. The hidden door slammed shut. Torchlight flooded the chamber as armed guards descended the stairs, kopjes gleaming. Behind them stood Menkaw, his leopard skin cloak pristine, the fourth scroll clutched in his hand. A cruel smile split his face. The chamber of the moon, he purred. Fitting. Even Hathor's light cannot hide vermin. Nebamin shoved the fifth scroll into his satchel, heart hammering. Guards fanned out, blocking the stairs. Menkaw stepped forward, unrolling the fourth scroll. Its illustrations seemed to writhe in the flickering light, positions of dominance, submission, control. This one taught me how to bind a soul, he said, eyes fixed on Merit. Imagine what five together could do. Pharaoh will kneel, and Egypt will be cleansed of this. Filth. A guard lunged. Nebamin ducked, swinging his torch. Embers scattered. Merit snatched a bronze incense burner, smashing it into a guard's temple. Chaos erupted, a dance of blades and grunts. Nebamin parried a khopesh with his satchel, the scrolls inside thudding like a second heartbeat. Merit fought like a lioness, but a guard caught her arm, twisting it behind her back. She cried out. Menkaw strode through the fray, untouched. He seized Merit by the throat, pressing a dagger to her ribs. Enough, scribe, he snarled. Nebamin froze, chest heaving. Two guards wrenched his arms back. The scrolls, Menkaw demanded. All of them, or I carved the heresy from her heart. Merit's eyes locked with Nebamin's. Blood trickled from her lip, but her voice was steel. Don't. He'll use them to bleed Egypt dry. Menkaw's blade pressed deeper. A stain bloomed on her linen shift. Nebamin's gaze darted between Merit's face and the satchel. The fifth scroll's words echoed. Sacred alignment. Life or death. Freedom or tyranny. His hands trembled as he slowly slid the satchel from his shoulder. Menkaw's smile widened in triumph. Then, from the shadows above, a voice rang out. Cool, ancient, and dripping with venom. Release her, Menkaw, or your ambition ends here, in the dark. Every head snapped upward. Silhouetted against the reopened door stood a figure Nebamin had only ever seen in temple carvings. Queen Tai, Pharaoh's great royal wife, her eyes like chips of onyx in the torchlight. Behind her, a dozen Medjay warriors knocked arrows, their aim unwavering. Menkaw's grip on Merit faltered. My queen, this is a sacred matter. My palace, Tai interrupted, descending the stairs. My secrets, and my scroll. Her gaze swept the fifth scroll in Nebamin's satchel, then settled on Menkaw's fourth. You forget, High Priest. Hathor's whispers reach even the royal ear. Silence choked the chamber. Nebamin's mind raced. Queen Tai knew. The fifth scroll's power wasn't just spiritual, it was political. A weapon, or a key. Menkaw's dagger still kissed Merit's skin, but uncertainty flickered in his eyes. Tai stopped a pace away, her voice a lethal whisper. Choose. Die now, or hand me the scroll and live to serve. Nebamin held his breath. The satchel felt like a live coal in his hands. Above them, the painted stars of the chamber seemed to pulse, waiting. Part 7. The Queen's Gambit. The oil lamps guttered as Queen Tai's shadow fell across the chamber of the moon. Her entrance froze the room. Menkaw's grip on Merit slackened in shock. The guards lowered their spears, and Nebamin's breath caught in his throat. Tai moved like a panther draped in gold-embroidered linen. Her Nubian features sharp in the lamplight, eyes sweeping the scene with unnerving calm. Behind her, a dozen royal guards fanned out, their bronze-tipped spears gleaming. Menka, Tai said, her voice a low thrum of authority. You trespass in the house of Pharaoh. Release the priestess. Menko recovered quickly, bowing with exaggerated deference. Great royal wife, I act only to preserve Maat. These thieves, he jerked his chin at Nebaman, steal blasphemous texts that mock the gods. The scroll in his hand defile the sanctity of life and death. Tai stepped forward, ignoring the guards. Her gaze lingered on the fifth scroll in Nebaman's trembling hands. And yet, High Priest, I see no defilement. I see wisdom older than your temple's foundations. She extended a hand toward Nebaman. Show me. Nebaman hesitated. Merritt gave a sharp nod. Unrolling the papyrus, he revealed the intricate illustrations, lovers entwined beneath a canopy of stars, their bodies forming sacred geometries, hieroglyphs flowing like rivers between them. Tai traced a finger over a depiction of Hathor, her bovine horns cradling a crescent moon. Kenny's hand, she murmured. The scribe who dared to bridge heaven and earth through flesh. Her eyes snapped to Menka. You fear this because it threatens your stranglehold on the afterlife. A soul needs no priest to bargain with Osiris if it knows the Sekhem Ra, the power of union. Menka's composure cracked. These are heresies. They claim the divine lies within any who master these rites, peasant or pharaoh. Precisely, Tai said softly, which is why my husband's priests burn them. But you don't seek to destroy them, do you? You seek to possess them, to twist their power for yourself. She turned to Nebaman. You have others? Nebaman laid out their treasures. The first scroll from Thebes, its frank depictions of pleasure as worship. The third scroll from Saqqara, linking sexuality to the sowing of crops and the flooding of the Nile, and the tattered fragment of the fourth scroll. Its hieroglyphs hinting at astral projection through ecstasy. He has the full fourth scroll, Nebaman said, glaring at Menka. Tai's voice turned to ice. Surrender it. For a heartbeat, defiance flared in Menka's eyes. Then Tai raised a hand. Her guards leveled their spears. With a hiss, Menka pulled the fourth scroll from his robes. As Tai took it, her fingers brushed his, and he recoiled as if burned. Leave. Now, she commanded. And know this, if this priestess or the scribe come to harm, I will peel the gold from your temple's walls and feed it to the Nile. Menka fled, his guards scrambling after him. The moment the door thudded shut, Merritt sagged against Nebaman. Why? She demanded of Tai. Why help us? Tai unrolled the fourth scroll, aligning it with the fifth. Nebaman gasped as the fragmented hieroglyphs merged, forming a coherent passage. The river of stars flows through the joined body. There, the soul drinks eternity. The priesthood is a rotting limb, Tai said, not looking up. My husband sleeps while Menka hoards grain, raises taxes, and whispers that only he can appease the gods. Kenny's scrolls are a weapon, one that could return power to the people or to a queen. She finally met Merritt's gaze. You serve Hathor, priestess. You know desire can be a gateway to the divine. Menka knows it too, but he would pervert it into a chain. Nebaman stepped forward. He said something in the valley that the 12th scroll could unmake the gods. Tai's expression darkened. Kenny's final work. Menka seeks it because it holds the ritual of the undying sun, not mere immortality, but apotheosis, a mortal becoming a god. With it, he would dethrone Pharaoh and reign forever. She handed the reunited fourth scroll to Nebaman. You have 5 now. The first, third, fourth, fifth, and the Saqqara fragments clues. But Menka has spies in every gnome. He will race you to the rest. Merritt touched the 5th scroll's edge. Where do we begin? Dendra, Tai said. The temple of Hathor hides the 6th scroll. Seek the priestess of the 7 veils. But heed this. The scrolls are keys, not just maps. Their true power awakens when read together. She moved to leave, then paused. Kenny hid them in places where earth and sky embrace. Dendra is one. The 11th lies in the belly of the great Sphinx, the 9th in the oasis of Siwa, but the 12th. A shadow crossed her face. It sleeps in the one place Menkaw fears to tread, the red land beyond the fifth cataract, where even gods go blind. As Tai vanished, the chamber felt hollow. Nebaman gathered the scrolls, his fingers brushing Merritt's. Outside, the Nile wind moaned against the palace walls. "We should leave before Menkaw rallies," Merritt whispered. Nebaman didn't move. The weight of Tai's revelation pressed on him. The 12 scrolls' terrible promise, the lives already lost. He thought of his master, cut down in the temple archives for stumbling upon the first scroll, of the nameless rebels in the House of the Red Sands, slaughtered by Menkaw's men. "Merritt," he said hoarsely, "in Saqqara, when the sand swallowed you, I felt my ka tear apart." She stilled. In the 3 moons since they'd fled Thebes, they had spoken of strategy, of hieroglyphs and hiding places, but never of the unspoken current between them. The shared glances in torchlit tombs, the brush of hands during river crossings. Merritt cupped his face. Her thumbs traced the scar Menkaw's guard had left on his cheekbone in Karnak. "When they threw me into the dark beneath the valley, all I saw was your face. Not Hather's. Yours." He kissed her. Not the hurried press of lips in a Memphis alley or the chaste comfort after a narrow escape. This was slow, deep, a confluence of fear and longing. The scrolls lay forgotten as her fingers tangled in his linen tunic. They sank to the floor, the cold stone beneath them ignored. Her skin tasted of myrrh and desert wind. Later, curled together in the lamplight, Nebaman traced the curve of her hip. "Kenny wrote that union is a mirror of the cosmos," he murmured. Was he right? Merritt smiled, her finger drawing the constellation of Sopdet on his chest. "He wrote that sacred union reflects the cosmos. It requires surrender. Trust." She kissed his collarbone, like trusting a scribe who steals papyri. He laughed, but sobered quickly. Tai said the scrolls awaken when united. "We have 5. What if we tried?" Merritt sat up, eyes alight. Together, they laid out the scrolls. Nebaman aligned the 4th and 5th, while Merritt placed the 1st and 3rd below them. As the papyri connected, the hieroglyphs began to glow, a soft, amber light pulsing like a heartbeat. Nebaman gasped as warmth spread up his arms. Visions flickered, a temple carved into rose-gold cliffs, Dendera, a labyrinth beneath a lion's paws, the Sphinx, and a searing desert where black pyramids pierced a blood-red sky, the 12th scroll's resting place. Suddenly, Merritt cried out. The scrolls flared blindingly bright. On the 5th scroll, the figure of Hathor seemed to move, her arms extending toward the 4th scroll's depiction of the star Sirius. Hieratic script burned itself into the margins. "Seek the pillar where the sky is born. Hathor's tears will guide you." The light vanished. The scrolls lay inert. Dendera's temple has a pillar dedicated to the birth of the sky goddess Nut. Merritt breathed. "Hathor's tears. That's the temple's sacred well." A pounding echoed at the chamber door. "Open in Pharaoh's name." They scrambled to gather the scrolls. Nebaman shoved them into a leather satchel as the door shuddered under blows. Merritt raced to a side entrance. A servant's passage time must have known about. "Menkaw moves faster than I thought," Nebaman growled. They slipped into the passage just as the main door splintered. The narrow corridor stank of dust and rat droppings. Merritt led them downward, through forgotten storerooms stacked with amphorae, emerging near the palace's river docks. The pre-dawn Nile flowed like molten obsidian. Nebaman scanned the feluccas bobbing at the piers. "We need a boat. Dendera is 100 miles upriver." "Not a chance," Merritt said, pointing. Down the quay, temple guards in leopard-skin cloaks questioned dock workers. "Menkaw's men." A low whistle sounded from a shadowed alcove. An old woman beckoned, her face hidden by a hood. Nebaman tensed. but Merritt gripped his arm. Nefret. The woman pushed back her hood. It was the retired priestess from Memphis who'd sheltered them. Tai sent word, Nefret rasped. Menka has sealed the river. Every boat to Dendera is watched. She pressed a clay token into Merritt's hand, a crude carving of a hippopotamus. Go to the mud brick compound near the slaughterhouses. Ask for Bach. He runs underground cargo. They melted into the city's waking streets. The air reeked of dung fires and baking bread. At the compound, a hulking Nubian examined the token. Without a word, he led them to a hidden cellar. Inside, a dozen men loaded contraband sacks onto a shallow draft barge. Dendera, Bach grunted. 2 gold, Debin. And you work the oars. As Nebaman paid, shouting erupted outside. Temple guards. Bach cursed. They're searching every warehouse. Get in. He shoved them toward the barge just as the cellar door burst open. Blasphemers! Surrender the scrolls. Menka stood framed in the doorway, flanked by guards. In his hand, he held not a weapon, but a small, ornate chest. Nebaman froze. He'd seen such chests in temple archives. Canopic jars for cursed objects. Menka smiled. You think Tai protects you? She plays her own game. But this. He raised the chest. A shard of the netherworld obsidian. One touch severs the soul from the body. He nodded to a guard. Kill the priestess. Take the scribe alive. Spears flew. Nebaman yanked Merritt down as bronze points thudded into sacks of grain. Boxmen drew knives, lunging. Chaos erupted. In the fray, Nebaman saw Menka edge toward them. The obsidian chest opened now, revealing a jagged black stone that seemed to drink the lamplight. The scrolls, Nebaman realized. He wants them close enough to destroy. Merritt, the satchel, he shouted. She tossed it to him. As Menka lunged, Nebaman swung the leather bag like a club. It slammed into the chest. The collision unleashed a silent explosion of darkness. The cellar plunged into unnatural night. Nebaman heard screams, not of pain, but of existential terror. Beside him, Merritt chanted a hymn to Hathor, her voice the only anchor in the void. When light returned, Menka was gone. Half the guards lay insensate, whimpering. Boxmen were dead or fled. The obsidian shard lay on the dirt floor, now dull and inert. The satchel of scrolls glowed faintly at Nebaman's feet, unharmed. The scrolls shielded us, Merritt whispered. Their power countered the stone. Bach called them onto the barge. Go, before more come. As the barge slipped into the Nile's current, Nebaman watched Malkata recede. The 5th scroll's clue echoed in his mind. Hathor's tears will guide you. But all he could see was Menka's face in that final moment, not angry, but triumphant. He wanted us to have the scrolls, Nebaman realized with dread. He's herding us toward Dendera. Why? Merritt touched his shoulder. What is it? He didn't answer. Up ahead, the first rays of Ra's chariot split the sky, turning the river to blood. Somewhere in Dendera, the 6th scroll waited. And Nebaman knew, with chilling certainty, that Menka would be there. Not to steal it, but to make them unlock its secrets. Part 8. The Labyrinth of Hathor. The Nile flowed like molten copper under the midday sun as Nebaman and Merritt sailed south toward Dendera. 5 precious scrolls lay wrapped in linen inside Nebaman's satchel, each a fragment of a mystery that now threatened to consume them. Beside him, Merritt stood silent, her priestess robes replaced with the simple linen of a merchant's daughter, though her eyes still held the sharpness of a hawk. The river's gentle current belied the storm in Nebaman's heart. Menka was out there, hunting them, and Dendera was a trap they had no choice but to spring. The Temple of Hathor is not just stone and ritual, Merritt said softly, breaking the silence. It's a living labyrinth. Hathor's heart beats in its shadows. To find the 6th scroll, we must listen to it. And Menka? Nebaman asked, his hand drifting to the dagger hidden beneath his tunic. He expects brute force. We must be water, not rock. By nightfall, they reached Dendera. The temple complex rose from the desert like a mirage, a symphony of carved sandstone columns crowned with the serene face of Hathor, her cow horns framing the moon. Incense hung thick in the air, mingling with the distant chant of priestesses. Nebamin's skin prickled. Beneath the sacred calm, he felt Menka's presence like a cobra coiled in the reeds. They slipped through a side gate used by temple gardeners, Merit guiding them through moonlit corridors adorned with celestial maps and hymns to the goddess. The sixth scroll, she explained, lay hidden in the sanctum of the seven veils, a chamber where the highest rites of sacred union were performed. It reveals how earthly love mirrors the binding of stars, she whispered, a bridge between flesh and cosmos. Deeper they descended, into the temple's underbelly. The air grew cooler, the walls slick with condensation. Nebamin's sandals whispered against stone as they approached a doorway unlike any other. Two lovers carved in relief, their bodies entwined beneath a canopy of constellations. The sanctum. Only a true priestess of Hathor can open it, Merit murmured, pressing her palm to the lovers' joined hands. The stone groaned, and the door slid inward. Moonlight flooded the chamber, though no window broke the walls. In the center, on an alabaster pedestal, lay a papyrus scroll, its edges glowing with a faint, silvery light. The sixth scroll. Nebamin stepped forward, but Merit seized his arm. Wait, can't you feel it? A shadow detached itself from the far wall. Then another. Temple guards, swords drawn. And behind them, Menka emerged, his ceremonial robes replaced by practical leather armor, his smile a thin, cruel line. You have made this too easy, scribe, he hissed. Did you truly think Hathor would shield you from justice? Merit stepped in front of Nebamin, her voice ringing clear in the confined space. Justice? You desecrate this sanctum with violence, Menka. The goddess sees your hypocrisy. The goddess serves order, Menka spat. These scrolls are chaos. They whisper that any farmer can touch the divine through lust, that the Pharaoh's divinity is a lie. He gestured to the guards. Kill the scribe. Take the priestess alive. She will watch him die before she yields the scrolls. Steel rasped as blades lifted. Nebamin drew his dagger, but Merit's hand shot out, not toward the guards, but toward the pedestal. She sang a single, piercing note that seemed to vibrate in Nebamin's bones. The hymn of Hathor's grief. The sixth scroll unfurled. Light exploded, not the harsh glare of torches, but a soft, celestial radiance. The carved lovers on the wall shimmered, their stone limbs seeming to move. Nebamin gasped as constellations detached from the ceiling, swirling like golden dust. The guards staggered back, shielding their eyes. Menka roared, witchcraft. Truth, Merit breathed. The light coalesced around the scroll, revealing illustrations that lived, a man and woman embracing, their bodies dissolving into stars, then reforming as the Nile and the desert, life and death intertwined. Nebamin understood then, the scroll wasn't just instruction. It was a key to seeing the world as the ancients did, a sacred whole. Grab it. Menka lunged, but the light flared brighter. When it faded, Menka and his guards were gone. Not dead. Erased. The chamber stood empty save for Merit, Nebamin, and the softly glowing scroll. Hathor's mercy, Merit whispered, sagging against the pedestal. She cast them into the temple's heart, a maze of old tunnels. It will delay, not stop him. Nebamin took the sixth scroll. As his fingers touched the papyrus, warmth flooded him, and a vision flickered, a desolate expanse of dunes under a violet sky, the sea of ghosts. And beneath it, a tomb. Kenny, he breathed. The seventh scroll is with him. Merit nodded, her face pale but resolute. His final resting place. And Menka knows we must go there now. She touched the scroll in Nebamin's hand. This one confirmed it. The full power of the 12. It requires a union forged in life and consecrated in death. Kenny hid the seventh with his body because only those willing to face the ultimate threshold can wield it. They fled the sanctum as shouts echoed through the upper corridors. Menka had freed himself. Outside, the desert night swallowed them. the Nile a distant ribbon of silver. Nebaman clutched the satchel. 6 scrolls now, heavy with promise and peril. The sea of ghosts, Merritt said, gazing west into the darkness, where the sand sings and the dead walk. Menkaw will be waiting. Then we walk with them, Nebaman replied. The dunes stretched before them, infinite and whispering. Somewhere in that sea of sand lay Kinti's tomb, the 7th scroll, and the next circle of the labyrinth they were destined to navigate, or die trying. Part 10. The Return to Thebes. The Weight of Shadows. The lower chamber of Kinti's tomb was a prison of silence. Nebaman and Merritt huddled in the darkness, the only light coming from a crack in the ceiling far above, a sliver of moonlit sand that seemed worlds away. Merritt's hands trembled as she traced the edge of the 6th scroll, its papyrus warm beneath her fingertips. Menkaw has the 7th, she whispered, the words hollow. Its power is corrosive in his hands. He won't hesitate to kill to wield it. Nebaman pulled her close, his voice low and urgent. But he doesn't have the key to its ritual. Without a willing sacrifice, without love, it's just papyrus and ink. He touched the satchel at his hip, feeling the weight of the other scrolls. Kinti's teachings were never about death alone. The 6th scroll speaks of balance. Life feeds death. Death nourishes life. There's another way. We'll find it in Thebes. Merritt's eyes hardened. The temple of Ammonius, where I once served. Where he rules. Her fingers brushed the golden minette necklace hidden beneath her robes, a symbol of Hathor, worn by priestesses of the old ways. Menkaw will expect us there. It's a trap. Then we walk into it with open eyes, Nebaman said. He stood, offering her his hand. But first, we survive the desert, the sea of ghosts. The journey back through the sea of ghosts was a gauntlet of whispers. By day, the sun scorched their skin. By night, the wind carried phantom voices, echoes of lovers parted by the 7th scroll's curse. They rationed the last drops of water, their lips cracking, their steps dragging through the dunes. On the 2nd night, as Nebaman scanned the horizon for threats, Merritt collapsed. "Leave me," she gasped, sand coating her eyelashes. "Take the scrolls. Finish this." Nebaman knelt, cradling her face. "Never." He pressed his water skin to her lips, though it held only dust. "The 6th scroll," he reminded her. "The union of Ka and Ba, spirit and soul. Our bond is stronger than this desert." He helped her rise, and they staggered onward, guided by the stars and the stubborn pulse of the scrolls in their satchel. Near dawn, they found an oasis, a tiny spring shielded by rocks, its water clear and cold. As they drank, Nebaman noticed carvings on the stones, a scarab, a lotus, and a coiled serpent. "Kinti's mark," he murmured. "This is no accident. The scrolls are guiding us." Merritt touched the symbols. He walked this path too. He knew the cost of his truth. Thebes, city of traps. Thebes rose from the desert like a mirage. White walls, towering pylons, and the distant gleam of the temple of Ammonius. But danger clung to the city gates. Pharaohs' guards scrutinized every entrant, their eyes sharp for the blasphemers described on Menkaw's scroll parchment warrants. Nebaman and Merritt disguised themselves as linen traders, their faces hooded, their scrolls hidden in a bale of cloth. Merritt led them through the back alleys of the artisans' quarter, where the air smelled of sawdust and molten bronze. "We need allies," she said. "The House of the Red Sands is gone, but the old networks remain." She stopped before a potter's workshop, its doorway painted with a tiny red lotus, a symbol of the resistance. Inside, a wizened woman named Tia greeted them with tearful recognition. "Merritt, they said you were dead." Tia embraced her, then eyed Nebaman. "Menkaw's men are everywhere. The temple whispers he's planning a great purification at the next moon festival. Merritt's jaw tightened. He means to use the seventh scroll, to kill and resurrect himself as a god. She unrolled the sixth scroll, pointing to an illustration, a figure crowned in light, rising from a lover's corpse. He needs a sacrifice. Someone with a pure heart. Someone like me. Nebamin's blood turned to ice. We won't let him touch you. Tia intervened. There's a way into the temple archives, a forgotten passage beneath the sacred lake. She handed Merritt a copper key, used by the priestesses of Hathor in darker times. But hurry, Menkaw seals the inner sanctum at sunset. The archives of Ammonius. The passage was a flooded nightmare. Waist-deep in icy water, Nebamin and Merritt waded through pitch-black tunnels, their only light a shielded oil lamp. Rats skittered along the walls, and the air reeked of decay. Above them, they heard the muffled chants of priests preparing for evening rites. Here, Merritt whispered, stopping before a stone slab. She inserted Tia's key, and the slab slid aside, revealing the archives, a cavernous room stacked with papyrus, statues, and chests of ebony and gold. Dust hung thick in the air. They searched frantically, overturning jars and scroll cases. Nebamin's fingers closed around a familiar texture, a scroll case carved with Kinney scarab. Inside lay the eighth scroll, its illustrations vibrant despite the centuries. It showed couples not in acts of love, but in shared meditation, their bodies still, their casts intertwined like golden threads. It's not about sex or death alone, Nebamin breathed. Look, the eighth teaches communion through stillness, the balance of energies. He pointed to a hieroglyphic verse. When two souls merge in silence, the dew opens its gate. No blood need spill, no breath need cease. Love transcends mortal fate. Merritt's eyes widened. The ritual doesn't require death. Menkaw misread the seventh. Kinti offered an alternative. A cold laugh echoed through the archives. Menkaw stepped from the shadows, the seventh scroll glowing in his hands. How touching, he sneered. The scribe thinks he understands divine mysteries. Behind him, guards blocked the exit. You're wrong, Menkaw, Nebamin said, holding up the eighth scroll. The seventh sacrifice was a last resort for the unenlightened. The eighth reveals the true path. Menkaw's face contorted with rage. Lies. Kinney's power demands blood. He unrolled the seventh scroll, its symbols pulsing crimson. The air hummed, and the guards staggered as if drunk. You, Merritt, will be my vessel. Your death will make me eternal. He lunged, but Merritt was ready. She raised her Manat necklace, chanting a hymn to Hathor. The sixth and eighth scrolls flared in response, their golden light clashing with the seventh's red glare. The archives trembled. Papyri rained from shelves like brittle leaves. Nebamin seized the moment. He tackled Menkaw, and the seventh scroll tumbled from his grasp. Merritt snatched it, rolling it shut with trembling hands. The red light died, leaving only the warm glow of the sixth and eighth. Menkaw scrambled back, spitting curses. This isn't over. I have allies you cannot imagine. He fled into the shadows, his guards close behind. Merritt sank to her knees, clutching the seventh scroll. He's gone, but he'll return stronger. Nebamin helped her stand. Then we find the ninth scroll first. The eighth mentions its guardian, the Lady of the Sycamore at Memphis. As they slipped back into the flooded passage, the eighth scroll seemed to pulse in agreement. They had survived Menkaw's trap and uncovered Kinney's gentler truth. But the high priest would not relent. Somewhere in the darkness, he was already hunting the ninth and the key to godhood. Part 10. The Heart of Memphis. The Nile flowed like molten copper under the setting sun as Nebamin guided their reed boat toward Memphis. 8 sacred scrolls rested against his back, wrapped in oiled leather, a weight that went far beyond physical burden. Each contained fragments of divine truth. Each brought them closer to the 12th scroll's completion. And each, he knew, made Menkaw's pursuit more desperate. Beside him, Merritt scanned the bustling riverbanks, her priestess's poise hidden beneath the plain linen of a merchant's wife. Minka will have eyes everywhere, she murmured, her voice barely audible over the lap of water against the hull. Especially here. Memphis was his stronghold long before it became our destination. Nebaman nodded, steering toward a secluded inlet where fishermen mended nets far from the main docks. The ancient capital loomed ahead, whitewashed walls, towering pylons of the Temple of Ptah, and the distant roar of a city that had ruled Egypt for 1,000 years. He touched the dagger hidden beneath his tunic. The scrolls seemed to pulse against his spine, a constant reminder of the power they carried and the death that hunted them. We are so close, he thought. Yet the path narrows like a tomb shaft. They found Nefret in her walled garden, crushing dried lotus petals in a mortar. The retired priestess didn't startle as they slipped through her gate. Her eyes, sharp as obsidian chips, took in their dust-stained robes and the tension in their movements. You've grown bolder, Nebaman, she said, wiping her hands on a cloth. Or more foolish. Menka's soldiers patrol every street. He's convinced the governor you defile Ma'at itself. Merit stepped forward. We need shelter. And knowledge. The ninth scroll is here. Nefret's gaze drifted to the bundle on Nebaman's back. 8, she breathed. You have 8. She ushered them inside her modest home, where the scent of herbs and aged papyrus clung to the cool air. As they drank watered wine, she revealed the truth. The ninth scroll lies in Ptah's inner sanctum, guarded day and night. Menka expects you to come for it. Nebaman leaned forward. How do we breach it? With what you already carry, Nefret said, tapping the scroll bundle. The 8th scroll speaks of communion. Yes? But the 9th, it is creation itself. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Ptah spoke the world into being. His union with Sekhmet birthed the stars. The 9th teaches that sacred act, the spark that ignites life. To touch it, you must perform the rite of opening within the sanctum. Merit went still. What does it require? Blood, Nefret said. A drop freely given upon the scroll itself. But know this, Menka has twisted the temple guards with promises of power. They'll die to stop you. Midnight draped Memphis in shadows as Nebaman and Merit approached the Temple of Ptah. Torches flickered along its massive pylons, casting long, dancing shapes that seemed to writhe like restless spirits. They slipped through a forgotten servant's entrance, a narrow corridor smelling of damp stone and old incense. The inner sanctum, Merit signed in the gloom, her fingers brushing Nebaman's arm. 2 guards barred the way, spears gleaming. Merit closed her eyes, lips moving in silent invocation. Nebaman felt the shift, a sudden warmth in the air, a thickness that made the guards shift on their feet, their eyes glazing. The 8th scroll's ritual, a whisper of desire to cloud the mind. They struck fast. Nebaman's dagger hilt cracked against one temple. Merit's pressure point strike dropped the other. No death, only silence. The sanctum door groaned as Nebaman lifted its bronze bar. Inside, Ptah's statue loomed, the creator god shrouded in shadows, his hands holding the ankh of life. At his feet sat a sandstone chest. Nebaman lifted the lid. There, wrapped in linen as fine as spider silk, lay the 9th scroll. Older than the others, its edges frayed, its pigments faded to whispers of indigo and ochre. The images stunned him, figures entwined not just in passion, but in a cosmic dance, limbs arcing like constellations, hieroglyphs spiraling around them like newborn stars. Merit drew her ritual knife. A drop, freely given. She pricked her fingertip. Blood welled, dark as pomegranate wine, and fell onto the papyrus. The scroll shivered. Light bled from its fibers, illuminating the chamber with a soft gold radiance. Nebaman gasped as energy surged through him, a connection not just to Merit, but to the thrumming heart of creation itself. The air hummed with Ptah's ancient voice. To unite is to create. To create is divine. Then shouts. Torchlight flared in the corridor. Menka's voice, venomous and triumphant. The sanctum. Now, behind Ptah, Merit hissed. They shoved the statue. Stone grated as a hidden passage yawned open, Nefret's last gift. They plunged into darkness just as guards stormed the chamber. The passage spilled them into moonlit temple gardens. But torches already converged, a dozen guards spreading like a net. They ran, ducking through alleys slick with night dew, the scrolls pounding against Nebamin's back. Memphis became a maze of shadows and sudden light. A figure stepped from an archway. Nefret, to the river, she urged, pulling them toward a date palm grove. I have a boat. The thrum of a bowstring. Nebamin saw the arrow's flight, a black streak in the moonlight. Nefret staggered. He caught her as she fell, the shaft buried deep between her shoulders. Blood bloomed across her linen robe like a deadly flower. Abydos. She choked, her hand clutching Nebamin's tunic. The 10th, under Osiris's gaze. Her eyes fixed on some distant point, then went still. Empty. Merit's cry was raw grief, but footsteps pounded behind them. Nebamin laid Nefret in the grass, her silver hair fanned like a halo. Another soul lost to Menkau's hunger. They ran, down muddy banks, into the Nile's cold embrace. Nebamin shoved their reed boat into the current, leaping in as arrows hissed into the water. He rowed until his muscles screamed, Memphis shrinking behind them. Merit cradled the 9th scroll, its light now faded, but its power thrumming against her palms. Nefret's sacrifice. Her voice broke. Nebamin watched the river ahead, black and endless. She named Abydos. The 10th scroll lies with Osiris. He touched Merit's blood-stained finger, the same that had awakened the 9th. We carry creation in our hands, Merit, and death on our heels. The boat drifted south. Nebamin counted the scrolls, 9 now. 3 remained. Somewhere in the night, Menkau would be gathering forces, his obsession curdling into madness. Ahead lay Abydos, city of the dead, where the god of resurrection waited. And the 10th scroll, they knew, would demand more than blood. It would demand courage to face what lay beyond the veil of life itself. Part 11. The Osirian Shadow. The sacred city of Abydos rose from the desert like a mirage of eternity. Sandstone temples glowed amber under the relentless sun, and the air hummed with the chants of priests honoring Osiris, lord of the afterlife. Nebamin felt the weight of the 9 scrolls in his satchel, a burden of power and peril. Beside him, Merit walked in silence, her gaze fixed on the great temple's pylons. Her knuckles whitened around her staff. This place, she whispered, is where I learned that death is not an end, but a doorway, and where I learned that some doorways should never be opened. Menkau's presence hung over the city like a sickness. His emblem, a coiled serpent devouring its tail, was etched onto guardhouse doors, and temple acolytes eyed strangers with cold suspicion. Nebamin and Merit slipped into the shadows of a grain merchant's stall as a squadron of Medjay guards marched past, Menkau's silver-tipped spear glinting among them. He's turned the priesthood into his private army, Nebamin muttered. Merit's eyes darkened. Worse, he's twisting Osiris's rites into snares for us. The weight of memory. As night fell, they crouched in a crumbling tomb shrine beyond the city walls. Merit traced hieroglyphs of Osiris on the wall, her voice hollow. I was 14 when I came here, a novice priestess eager to serve the god. But the high priest then, he believed true devotion required breaking the soul. She flinched as if struck. He locked me in the Osirian's flooded chambers for 3 days. To drown the mortal self, he said. I nearly did. Nebamin gripped her hand, feeling her tremble. Why return? He asked. She turned to him, eyes blazing. Because the 10th scroll lies in that darkness, and I won't let Menkau defile it like he defiles everything. Descent into darkness. The Osirian was a spectral labyrinth beneath the temple, a subterranean mirror of Osiris's tomb. Black water seeped from its walls, pooling around limestone pillars carved with judgments of the dead. Using the 9th scroll's wisdom, Nebamin ignited a palm-sized orb of cold blue light, a breath of Ta. Its glow revealed frescoes of lovers entwined in cosmic balance, life and death flowing through them like twin rivers. Here, Merit breathed. pointing to a mural of Isis resurrecting Osiris. The 10th is near. It speaks of the moment between, when the heart is weighed and the soul chooses rebirth. But Menkaw was waiting. As Nebamin pried a stone slab loose, revealing an alabaster case, the high priest emerged from behind a pillar, flanked by 6 guards. "You carry the keys to godhood," Menkaw hissed, "and yet you scuttle like rats in the dark." His spear aimed at Merit's throat. "Give me the scrolls, scribe, or watch her heart be devoured by Ammit." Nebamin froze, until Merit's hand darted to her belt. She scattered powdered lapis lazuli, chanting words from the 5th scroll. The Osirian shuddered. Water surged from the pools, forming liquid serpents that coiled around the guards, dragging them under. The price of power. Menkaw lunged. His spear grazed Merit's side as she shoved the 10th scroll into Nebamin's hands. Blood bloomed across her linen robe like a deadly flower. "Go," she choked. But Nebamin tore open the 10th scroll. Its hieroglyphs blazed gold, revealing a ritual of binding. Life to death, breath to dust. Desperate, he pressed his palm to Merit's wound and recited the incantation. A searing light filled the chamber. Merit gasped as her flesh knit together, but her skin turned cold as moonlight, and her eyes flickered with the pale fire of Duat, the underworld. She lived, yet death clung to her like a second shadow. Menkaw laughed amidst the chaos. "You used the scroll's power blindly, boy. She is anchored to the dead now." He vanished into a hidden passage as pillars cracked overhead. The road to Elephantine. Stumbling into the desert dawn, Nebamin cradled Merit. Her touch was icy, her voice a whisper. "The ritual, it tethered me to the scales of Osiris. I feel the weight of every soul passing." She clutched the 10th scroll, its final lines revealing the 11th's resting place, where Happy's first tears fall, in the belly of the crocodile god. Elephantine, Nebamin realized. At the first cataract. Behind them, smoke rose from the Osirians' collapsed entrance. Menkaw's voice echoed on the wind, carried by some dark magic. "Run to the river's end. I will peel the divinity from your bones." Merit's death-cooled fingers brushed Nebamin's cheek. "He knows we're wounded. And he knows." She shuddered. "I am becoming a bridge between worlds. The 11th scroll may sever that tie, or break me entirely." As they fled south toward the Nile's raging cataracts, the 10th scroll pulsed in Nebamin's bag, whispering of thresholds crossed and prices unpaid. Somewhere ahead, in the island fortress of Elephantine, waited Sobek's temple, and a secret that could save Merit or consume them both. Journey to Elephantine, where the crocodile god's priests guard the 11th scroll. Merit's connection to the dead intensifies, revealing visions of Kenny's final days. Menkaw forges an unholy pact with Nubian mercenaries, turning the river red. And beneath Sobek's sanctuary, a choice: sacrifice a life to sever Merit's tether, or let death claim her soul. Part 13. The Heart of the Duat. The air in Elephantine tasted of river mud and desperation. Merit crouched in a reed boat, moonlight silvering the tears on her cheeks as she unrolled the 11th scroll. Its hieroglyphs pulsed like a heartbeat. To walk the Duat, the traveler must become death's bride, drowning in darkness yet breathing stars. Menkaw's were galley sliced through the Nile behind her, close enough that she heard his roar. The scrolls, or his soul, burns forever. The descent. Merit anchored at Fulai's crumbling dock. Kneeling at Isis' altar, she arranged the 11 scrolls in a sacred circle. With Nebamin's Kopesh dagger, she drew blood from her palm, chanting the 11th scroll's ritual. The world dissolved. Water became void. Stone became mist. The air screamed with the voices of unburied dead. She fell through layers of reality past the judgment hall, beyond the lake of fire, until she stood in a garden of obsidian lilies. There, Nebuchadnezzar lay trapped in an illusion, a perfect Thebes where he lived as a humble scribe, unaware of scrolls, priests, or her. Break the chains in his heart, echoed Osiris' voice, or he stays forever. The Lord of the Dead. Osiris materialized, crowned with the Eteth, skin green as Nile rot. His eyes held collapsing stars. Why seek him, daughter of dust? To wield power? To cheat death? Merit touched the scrolls at her belt. To balance what your priest broke. A vision flooded the Duat, Menka and Elephantine, slaughtering temple guards as he performed a perverted version of her ritual. Black energy crackled around him. I come for the throne of eternity, he shrieked. Osiris' sigh made galaxies tremble. He tears the veil. Stop him, or I seal the Duat for mortals forever. The 12th scroll. Merit ran to Nebuchadnezzar's sleeping form. Remember the House of Red Sands? She whispered, pressing their Turin scroll fragment into his hand. Remember me? His eyes flew open, memory returning like a flood. They found Menka at the Duat's crumbling edge, his body half fused with shadow. Behold, he held, holding aloft a forged 12th scroll. I am God now. Nebuchadnezzar and Merit moved as one. 1. Their 11 scrolls rose, forming a barrier of golden light. 2. Menka's false scroll disintegrated, burning his hands. 3. Together they spoke Kenny's lost word, Motkar truth balanced. Menka's scream faded as Osiris' scales swallowed him. For eternity, you weigh your own heart. The return. Osiris extended his crook. Where Menka stood, a 12th papyrus materialized, its surface alive with constellations. Kenny was my scribe, he said. These scrolls were never about domination, but the sacred union of opposites. As dawn broke over Philae, Merit and Nebuchadnezzar awoke on the temple steps, the 12 scrolls bound together with river grass. Where the 11th once ended, the 12th now glowed. When desire becomes worship and flesh becomes light, two souls walk as one through death's gate, unafraid. Epilogue. The House of Rising Waters. 5 years later, whispers spread of a temple near Alexandria where fishermen learn astronomy, prostitutes teach philosophy, lovers in saffron robes practice dances merging passion and prayer. On a moonlit porch, Nebuchadnezzar touches the scar over Merit's heart, the wound from Abydos now a silver crescent. Menka feared pleasure could topple Pharaohs, he murmurs. Merit smiles, watching students trace Kenny's constellations in the tide pools. He missed the truth. Real power lies in the balance. As the night breeze carries the scent of lotus and salt, the scrolls rest in a cedar chest, not hidden, but offered, ready for the next seekers of truth. The end.